Welcome to Time Travelling Team, the weekly podcast where we review every story of Doctor Who right from the very beginning. I'm Tricia.
And I'm Paddy. In this week's special Rambling in the TARDIS, it's time for us to say goodbye to Turlough. Whether it's a sad farewell or a happy farewell dance, we'll find out. As always, we'll be discussing Turlough's strengths and weaknesses, as well as giving our picks for his best and worst episodes.
We'd also love to hear your thoughts on Turlough, whatever they may be, and his time in the TARDIS. So to join the discussion, you can check us out at Time Team on Facebook, X, and Instagram. On Facebook, X, and Instagram. You can tell us now Christmas. Mm-hmm. Or you can email us at timetravelingteam@teamproductions.com. I would also like to say, right, I've been sort of humming and hawing about us and X for a while, because I know a lot of people are moving off it or whatever.
Yeah.
I heard the best sort of rename for X the other day.
Yeah.
Because there's the whole, like, is it still Twitter or is it X?
Yeah.
There's this content creator who just refers to it as Twix. And I actually kind of love it.
Twix. I like it.
It doesn't taste as good and like
no.
whatever, but
Yeah. Oh, you feel bad for having one as well.
Anyway, so again, we only did this the other week, but for anyone who only just joined us, hello. Random place to join, but welcome as always. The way this works is Paddy and I are going to have a discussion about the character that has just left. In this case, that is Turlough. We're going to give our thoughts on the character's weaknesses first, and then their strengths, whatever they may be. And then we rank their worst episodes from least worst to worst. Mm-hmm. And their best episodes from least best to best.
Yes.
Often we agree. Sometimes we have differing opinions. I was thinking back again to our discussion about Tegan the other day, which I thought was really interesting. Because our decisions on best and worst episodes for her were an interesting discussion.
They were.
So,
they were.
If you haven't checked it out, go give that a listen. But for now, though, we are talking about Turlough.
We are. And just because you mentioned like we're back here again so soon. So like this run that we've had, because we've had story, companion leaving, and we will have story and person leaving. We haven't had something like this since the War Games. Because what we did for the War Games was we recorded the War Games in 2 parts, and then after that we did 3 ramblings because we had 3 people leaving at the same time.
Yeah. So, obviously, just a little bit of housekeeping, I suppose, was covered off now. So, our next episode is actually going to be our annual rambling. That, spoiler alert, we're recording straight away after this one.
Yes.
Which would be more of our sort of annual look back. We'll answer some questions that we've gotten, ask each other some, very hard hitting, like journalistic questions, and generally just sort of wind down.
Our school uniforms, practical time traveling outfits.
No. And then we're going to take a little bit of a break for Christmas. And then we will be back with the much anticipated Caves of Androzani at some point in the new year, probably middle of Jan. I'd say that episode will probably come out. Yeah. Just to give us a little bit of a break to enjoy the holiday season. But will we jump into Turlough?
We will jump into Turlough. Feet first so he can feel the impact. So, as you had the honours of doing the socials announcement, you have the honours of expressing your opinions first. So we always we always finish on a positive. So please tell me your weaknesses for Turlough. And housekeeping rule first of all. Turlough, played by the very talented Mark Strickson. Mark Strickson is a really good actor, and by all accounts is a very nice person. And I would actually like to meet him.
Yeah. There's nothing, Mark, if you ever hear this isn't about you, babe. It's 100% not about you.
Yes.
But yeah, so the weaknesses of Turlough. I have 2 and then an overarching one. So,
Okay.
those are. Well, I'll go through the two sort of main ones, and I'll discuss the first one. So the first one is his cowardice and self-preservation.
Mm-hmm.
We have said this time and time and time again. Turlough only cares about himself,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's a couple of stories that particularly stand out with that. Terminus, Wars of the Deep being a big one that we said. But it generally comes up in, like, I mean, he's had like 11 stories, and I go up in like 10 of them.
3, 4, 5.
Maybe 9 if you exclude the 5 Doctors. Maybe 9 of them.
Yeah, I think he's had like 9 stories, 9 or 10.
So yeah, so he's constantly looking out for himself,
Mm-hmm.
which, you know, let's play a little bit of devil's advocate here for a second. When traveling through space and time, self-preservation is not a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
However, when it's complete self-preservation and cowardice and constantly looking out for yourself, then it becomes a weakness, I think. Do you know?
Mm-hmm.
We rarely ever see Turlough take action for the betterment of anyone other than himself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we talked a number of weeks ago, I can't remember what story it was, but you were saying that you kind of thought that maybe Turlough had a bit of a thing for Tegan and blah, blah, blah.
It was Warriors of the Deep.
Warriors of the Deep, yeah. And then we realised that no, he doesn't. Turlough has a thing for Turlough,
Mm-hmm.
and that's about it. Like, it's surprising that he even travels at all, because they land somewhere, and if it's not like a beach where he can just enjoy himself and have fun, he doesn't want to be there. He's like, oh, can we not go back to the TARDIS? Like, you literally walked 2 steps. Like, for all you know, you've reached the fucking city of gold, and you've walked 2 steps and you want to turn back around. So that is incredibly frustrating, and we've given out about it on numerous occasions.
Mm-hmm.
That feeds in some way into the overarching one I'm going to talk about in a second. But the other thing that feeds into it is that we joke and we refer sometimes to the group in the TARDIS as Team TARDIS.
Mm-hmm.
Turlough has poor team dynamics. He does not work well with others. He doesn't have a good relationship with anybody in the TARDIS. And again, part of that is to be expected at the beginning, because he has this whole additional arc with the Black Guardian. You know, there's a bit of moral ambiguity there, whatever. But like, once that's done, like after Enlightenment, he still doesn't get along well with people.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's still being cagey and a coward and just out to protect himself. Him and the Doctor don't get along great. They're constantly bickering. Tegan, he's often antagonistic towards her. And it's just like, where is the friendship? You know, and we've said this. There's no friendship. Well, spoiler for, you know, when we do the 5th Doctor. There's no friendship between any of them, really. The main friendship we had was Nyssa and Tegan. Turlough didn't have any involvement in that. And it's just, it's unfortunate, because there was great potential there of, you know, he gets out from under the Black Guardian's thumb, and you're sort of waiting for the arc to come. And it never does.
Yeah.
Do you know? Like, if you think back to, like, say, a character like Zoe, who, you know, was obviously very different from Jamie, and her and the 2nd Doctor had a bit of a weird relationship. But even when they had their little, like, who's smarter than who contests, you could tell they were all still friends, though. Like,
yeah.
Maybe not the best of friends, you know, like, obviously Jamie and the Doctor preferred each other, but like, they were still friendly, and they still got along well. You know, if you go all the way back to the 1st Doctor and Ian, yeah, they had their differences, but at their heart, they really cared about each other.
Oh, yeah.
You don't get that here from Turlough towards anybody.
No.
really. Like, the Doctor fell in a pool of water and Turlough just assumed he was dead.
Yeah.
Okay. And fundamentally, it leads me to the weakness of the character as written,
Mm-hmm.
which is he's not likable. Like, as a fan, I don't like watching him because he's just not a nice person.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Stephen, you and I had issues with, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't say, maybe not, I think we probably said a little bit at the time, but in hindsight and now in comparison, I wouldn't say Stephen wasn't a nice person.
No, he was well intentioned, but
Yeah,
he was also an idiot.
yeah. And a bit up himself. But like,
Oh, hugely.
Stephen did have, and again, I may not have said this at the time, but again, hindsight is a great thing. I think Stephen did have a good heart.
Yeah.
At the centre of it all, he had a good heart. He displayed it in really shit ways half the time.
Mm-hmm.
But at the centre of it all, he had a good heart.
Mm-hmm.
Turlough was looking for a free ride and
Mm-hmm.
never to the place that he went.
Yeah.
So that for me is sort of the main crux of it, is like he's a coward. It's all about self-preservation. He doesn't play well with others, and I just don't like him. It makes me not like him as a person. Again, the
Mm-hmm.
character, not the actor.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't. Why would I want to watch that? How about you?
So I'm going to give something as a bit of a spoiler, okay? And the
Mm,
spoiler is that nothing from the Black, none of the Black Guardian trilogy stories are in my
mm,
picks. Okay,
okay.
yeah, none of them are my picks because we have two types of Turlough. We have Turlough under duress, under the thumb of the Black Guardian, and then we have Turlough outside of that. We talked before about how, um, for certain stories, we don't pick them because it's not the character themselves, because they've
Mm,
got some influence on them. I would do the same for Toro here because he's not able in those three stories. He doesn't. While granted he's not hypnotized, he still doesn't have
mm,
his complete 100% free agency throughout those stories. So
mm,
I so there was that, but it leaves to two different types of Turloughs as a character. So the Turlough under um, the Black Guardian is he's like this wretched lost figure because he's a narcissist, he's a coward, and he is out completely for himself in any way, shape, or form. And within those story beats, it's like we get that you want to kill the Doctor, but you're humming and hawing about it because you don't want to be found to be killing the Doctor. You don't want. It's like you don't want people to think bad of you for killing the Doctor, or it's something weird. But again, he's very cowardly when he's under the thumb of the Black Guardian. Then, when we shift out of the Black Guardian mode, he's just as much of a coward and a complete fucking narcissist and prick as he was under the Black Guardian. So he has no excuse in terms of that combat. It's just built into him. And we see it in stories like Warriors of the Deep, which is a strange. It's a contradiction in terms because, and that's what I said when it led to my belief that he had something for Tegan, because he's all guns a blazing to try and keep her safe, but where it's like the Doctor just fell into the pool. Fuck it, he's done for. Um, but like even then, when you come back to Planet of Fire, it's Perry comes. Oh, we have to save the Doctor, and I know how to save him. And like she is completely, she's been thrown into the deep end, first thing on an alien planet, and he's like, fuck it, he can take care of himself. And I completely echo your point in the sense of I still have a lot of issues with Stephen. I do. But he is a far afield in terms of horrible. Like he's not as horrible a character as Turlough is. Turlough is someone that looking back, there are very few moments that I enjoy watching him in. And again, when I say, I'll go back and watch, those, if there's stories from his run that I go back and watch, none of it's for Turlough.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah, so I agree with you. Like they had a wonderful opportunity for like this morally grey character, and it's like, again, when we often talk about our experiences playing tabletop, like games like D&D or GURPS or whatever, and it's always fun. Sometimes it's incredibly fucking frustrating when you have like that morally dubious character, Vicky, yes, our dear friend, who will, with the best of intentions, not care one jot about fucking over everyone else in the group. But yeah, like sometimes it's nice to throw kind of a cat amongst the pigeons in that regards. But like Turlough is, we get his lore, like his backstory, all dumped in essentially. We get a sprinkling in front of us, and then it's just nothing for resurrection because that's Tegan's story, and then it's just fucking exposition dump in Planet of Fire, and you're like, huh? None of this makes a whole lot of sense. Whereas if that had been sprinkled throughout the entire run, then it would have been a bit better, and then he would have been a bit more interesting, and to see what makes the fucking cogs in his head go. But it just leaves him as a very weak, shallow, one-dimensional character.
Yeah, I agree. And moving on, it makes it very difficult for me to identify strengths. So there's one strength I will... Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, I think I have like two.
I have 1 and 2 halves.
Okay.
Which isn't 2. Just for clarification.
Yeah.
So the one I have, which is true, is Turlough is very intelligent. He's an intelligent character. He's, I would say sort of on par with Nissa, maybe a bit more advanced in some ways than her. She's a bit more advanced than him and others. They sort of had their strengths and ups and downs in terms of where they were. But it's always good to have a companion every now and again who can talk to the Doctor sort of at their level. I think that's really interesting. I think it's a good strength to have, and I think there are times where it serves Turlough, right? It does him some level of benefit. Not a lot of times, but it exists. The 2 halves are more to do with the bits about Turlough I wish they'd done more with. So the first is this subtle alien perspective, right? Because Turlough isn't human, right? He looks human, he talks like he's human, but he's not, right? And he makes these subtle comments every now and again where you're reminded that he's not human. It's not just that he's not from Earth in the present day, he's from a different planet entirely. And he's not, and he's a different species, right? And it's different to, say, Romana, who, because she held herself with that Time Lord air, you always knew she was different. You never thought Romana was human because she was always behaving differently. For Turlough, it was very subtle. And there's a couple of bits where he makes a comment or whatever, and I'm like, oh, that's... it's an interesting call out. Often it's done in a dickish way, but like it's interesting that there's that subtle twist on the human experience. Do you know? I think it was a massive missed opportunity with the character to do more with that. Do you know? There was one story in particular, I can't remember which one it was, where we were saying that like this was Frontios, where we said like, oh, this was Tegan's opportunity to step in and sort of advocate on behalf of humanity, like as the sort of native person there or whatever. But contrast that with any number of times. Oh no, it was Warriors of the Deep, was it? It was
Yeah.
Warriors of the Deep. It was Warriors of the Deep. But you could have just as easily had Turlough, the man who looks human but isn't, but who isn't the Doctor and so isn't up on quite as high a pedestal, step into that role to sort of say, hey, stop looking around yourselves and look outward a bit. I'm not even from here. And I don't have a big time machine like him. I'm just a normal day-to-day person like you, but I'm not a day-to-day human and whatever. I think that was a missed opportunity. So it counts as half
and
of a thing.
Also, it's clear that they hadn't thought of his backstory by then, because him as a exile due to a civil war, coming to a time period where humanity is at war with itself and facing an external threat, you would think that he could have thrown in a couple of cents there as well.
Yeah. And the other half of it, and you kind of touched on this a bit yourself, is the concept of Turlough is very interesting. The sort of guy who made a deal with the devil and is struggling with that decision could have been very interesting. Had they written it differently. Had they written it as him being like, yeah, fuck it, I can kill whoever you want, that's not a problem. But then he meets the Doctor and he gets to know him and he's suddenly like, actually, I don't think I can, because he's a nice guy and he does good. And had that been the struggle, rather than, like you said, more to do with I don't want to get caught, and like thinking about himself. But had it been that way, and like when he breaks free in Enlightenment, had that been more of his doing than him being freed by the White Guardian, effectively. And then had we seen this sort of release, and then him sort of opening up and being like, yeah, and like maybe like, how did you end up on Earth anyway? And saying the King's Demons or something, that coming out there a little bit about, I'm not actually from Earth. I got exiled here. Oh my God, why? And da-da-da-da. Building into Frontios, building up into whatever. So it's a half a strength because it is an interesting and compelling concept. And it's quite unique in the characters that we've had so far. I think probably the closest one that came to it, well, I mean, you had Ian and Barbara who were kidnapped, but other than that is probably Romana. In a way, she was brought on as one thing and she grew, into another thing in her time with the Doctor.
Yeah,
but like that's the closest that we got to something like that. So I think it could have been really very interesting, and like to see Turlough relax after Enlightenment, to see him have fun and joke around with people, and maybe still be a bit of a coward because that's just who he is, but more like a sort of cowardly lion type of coward than a oh you fucker, where did you go kind of coward, which is a distinctly different vibe. So he's very intelligent.
I would say
he could have had an interesting alien perspective, and he was a unique concept.
I would say he does have cowardly lion moments, but they're not as strong as you'd like them to be. And
like I wouldn't give him a certificate for bravery. Like
no, I cite it as Warriors of the Deep when he does pick up a weapon and he stands too. Like, so I'd give him the kudos for that. But I wouldn't say that it's anything massive to write home about. It's not like it's not the exact same thing, but it's not quite like Sarah Jane leading a fucking siege of a castle type scenario. Yeah.
Or leading a jailbreak up a giant rocket ship.
Yeah. I think it kind of peaked in my notes because the main strength that I had for Turlough was his intelligence and how great it is to see a companion that can stand there on their own 2 feet with the Doctor, technologically speaking, as well as the villain of the piece. Because we definitely had that with Nissa when it came to Fort of Doomsday, especially. And then, like, we go back and you had, I would say Ian and the first Doctor was more science bros than Ian standing up to the villain of the piece on a technological level. But it was nice that he knew what the Doctor was aiming for. And then we had Liz Shaw, who we kind of has said was fantastic, but was a bit underutilized as the run went on a small bit. And then you really had Romana 1, and then it unfortunately became Romana 2, and it just I'll just leave it at that. Unfortunately, became Romana 2. But yeah, so it was refreshing to see him be able to kind of stand at the console and not have the Doctor kind of standing over him telling him what to do, or Turlough actually able to investigate an area and try and figure out what was going on. So I thought that was a nice refreshing thing for it. And the other strength I said was, it's not even a strength, because if someone's back is to the wall and they fight back, can that be classified as a strength? Because that's a fight or flight. No, it's not. No, it's not a fight or flight, because back against the wall,
is it bravery or is it self-preservation?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so, like, with Warriors of the Deep, while, as I said, it was, cool to see him pick up the weapon and kind of like, I need to go rescue Tegan. It's like, where is that for the Doctor when you know that the Doctor is still alive at any given stage in any given story? And then we also said we had the Awakening as well, where he just kind of fucks off. But yeah, so difficult one, honestly, to because I was talking to my wife about this before I was on to Sarah, and I was kind of saying, like, it's so difficult to find strengths for this character, and she was like, well, like, what if the characters ever had any strengths? I said, like, but that's not how we do the podcast. We all have to try and say at least something nice, because I don't think we have had, or possibly will have, someone where we just kind of out and out call them a punt.
Yeah, I mean, Stephen came close.
Yeah.
But, like, I think even, I'm actually going to do it now. I'm going to go back in.
And I think Stephen,
our rambling notes about Stephen, and see what I wrote.
But the problem with Stephen was, right, Stephen had the very, for us anyway, Stephen had the very unenviable task of following Ian Chesterton.
Yeah. Like, if I open up my notes on Stephen, for his weaknesses, we said that he was impatient and petulant, he was hot-headed, he had a bit of an ego, and he was quite mean to Dodo.
Yes.
On several occasions. However, we did say that, again, like I said a while ago, and I'm glad I actually had it in my notes, that wasn't me just looking back at rose-tinted glasses. At the core of it, he cared a great deal about Vicky and the Doctor, definitely. I think Dodo, in retrospect, in his own way.
Yeah.
Not quite the same, though.
No.
But, like, he cared a lot about the Doctor's safety, Vicky's safety, and a lot of the stupid decisions he made.
I'll ask you a question.
Based on that. Also, he nearly died in a fire to save his teddy bear.
Yeah, that's true. But I would ask you the question, okay? Would Turlough survive the massacre test? And that's what I would call it, the massacre. If you put any character into the situation that Stephen found himself in for the massacre, would he survive that test? Not a fucking...
I don't think so.
Not a prayer. Not a hope.
Turlough would have been stabbed in the back after 5 minutes.
Turlough would have fucked off.
Yeah. He either would have been stabbed in the back for saying something fucking stupid,
or stabbed,
or he would have fucked off.
Yeah.
So I don't think we've ever had this. And again, I don't know all of the companions to come personally, but I've seen a little bit of all of them at this point, given
the only companions that I think you're probably unfamiliar with fully are Mel in the classic era, and then probably Bill in the Capaldi era.
No, I've seen Bill. I've seen some of Bill's stuff.
Okay, cool. So it's probably just Mel then.
It's Mel and Grace. I haven't seen anything. I haven't seen the movie, so I don't know anything about Grace. Nothing. Mel, at least, I've seen in the modern era, so I have a bit of a feel. And I saw her in
Dragonfire.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But me to continue talking about Turlough, though.
Yes, we do.
As difficult as that is.
So, how about we mosey on over to our worst and best? High points, low points.
Yeah.
So, again, we always try to finish on the positive. So, we'll start off with our lowest rankings. So, Trish, if you would be so kind, your best worst to worst for Turlough.
This is really hard. Because in many ways, the vast majority of them are shit. Mm-hmm. So what I've done from best worst to worst is the King's Demons, Warriors of the Deep, and Terminus.
Okay.
How about you?
So, as I said, I'm excluding the Black Guardian trilogy for those reasons, as I said, of character under duress. I have Planet of Fire, Warriors of the Deep, so we're aligned on that, and then The Awakening.
I'm going to give you a spoiler because this may be the first time we have to change up how we do this.
Okay.
I had Planet of Fire as one of my best for Turlough.
Oh, okay. I don't know.
I don't know if you want.
I'm pretty sure we've done this.
I don't know if you want to.
I'm pretty sure we've done this. Maybe not as far down the pecking order. Oh no, sorry. What I'm thinking of. Whenever we had a companion whose entire story run only lasted a maximum of 6, we did the ranking. So like that was.
And obviously, I disagreed with you with Tegan, but I hadn't listed Enlightenment anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I think it was I think for Harry we were the biggest differentiation because for Romana 1 we were fairly kind of on par. We were just kind of flipped on Stones of Blood and Androids of Tara. Yeah. So
I will tell you just a spoiler. So I have Planet of Fire in the number 2 spot.
Okay, fair enough. And I have it as my least worst.
Yeah. So it's like what's number 7 spot or something.
Okay. So what's your number 3?
Mordred Undead.
Okay. So how about we do?
I mean, we could just do King's Demons. We both just talk about Planet. We do Warriors of the Deep, and then we do whatever.
Sorry, I actually have King's.
Oh, you do.
King's Demons is my third best one. And look,
okay.
I'll be 100%. I'll be 100% honest with you. Okay. And I think this is only the fairest way to do this because we're going to be like fucking falling all over us to figure this out. My low picks are from best worst to worst is Planet of Fire, Warriors of the Deep, Awakening. My best ones from worst best to top best are King's Demons, The Five Doctors, and Frontios. However, within that, I'll be 100% honest, I only picked 3 each to fill out the quota.
I will agree. What I had originally was Terminus and Warriors of the Deep.
Mm-hmm.
And then my 3-2-1 is Mordred, Planet, and Frontios. That's what I had this morning. Mm-hmm. And I have been struggling to pick 3 all day.
Yeah. So like the 5 Doctors in the King's Demons. So okay, here this is my rationale. Okay,
yeah.
King's Demons and 5 Doctors. King's Demons. He's barely in it. He's more comic relief than anything. because especially at that end where he keeps getting kidnapped, and then he finally picks up the sword and he's like, just back the fuck off. The Five Doctors, I picked it because he's hardly fucking in it, and he therefore doesn't make any sort of a negative impact.
Mm.
The main breadwinner for me in terms of his best is Frontios.
Yeah. So I'll give you my 2 explanations of those, so then we can do his worst in a bit more detail. Mordred Undead, like I said, I can't remember what I said at the time we reviewed the episode, right? I probably said, oh my god, he comes across as such a prick. But to the point I made about strengths, there was so much potential introduced because he was such a fucking curveball compared to everything else. And I think Mordred is where he was at his most Turlough-like in the very beginning, before the interaction. But also, it's where you get the sense of his not being human. You get the sense of his moral ambiguity just in general. And it drops this little flavour of what could come. And again, I always try to put myself in the perspective of like, okay, just pretend you like the character for a second. If I liked Turlough as a character, which I don't, but if I did, I would say that was a compelling introduction to his character. Because it made him interesting and made him intriguing. Planet of Fire, I put on there because we finally get something about him. We get his history. He does get to stand up for a bit. He actually has to be a bit center stage, which he never really is. He's usually off in the periphery because he runs away. So he gets to be center stage a bit. And do you know what? Well, we felt that his departure wasn't earned. For a departure for this character in particular, I mean, you could read it as him going on a journey and developing or whatever. I mean, I personally don't see it that way. But again, putting myself in the mindset for the sake of making a list of pretend you like the fucking character for half a second. Starting off with Mordred, where he's in this fucking school and whatever, and ending up in Frontios, where he's, fighting for his brother and, taking responsibility for his actions, which he never has done ever before, is an interesting arc. But you would have to watch them back to back, because if you realise it's a nothing sandwich.
Yeah.
It doesn't really work. So that's mine. So will we jump over and do... I'll give my thoughts on King's Demons. I might put it at the bottom. You can talk a bit more about Planet of Fire, and then let's do the other ones that we have there in the bottom. So the King's Demons for me. Dumbass in distress.
Yeah.
He's an utterly redundant character in this story. So again, if you're looking for a bit of fun, I mean, yeah, his whole thing of fucking come at me, I fucking dare you because I'm fucking sick to shit of this shit. That was kind of funny.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, like I was listening back to our conversation a bit earlier on. It's like, I'll just randomly stare out a window. Like, he's only just been freed from the Black Arts, fully freed from the Black Arts control. And he's been put into this situation where we have another morally ambiguous character in the form of Chameleon. And it's like, okay, here's an opportunity for Turlough to sort of, get involved and whatever. But other than delivering snarky comments, he doesn't fucking do anything else. And I'm aware it's only a 2-parter.
Yeah.
But still, for his story off the back of being freed, there's so much more that could have been done with this.
But this is the sad case of affairs, right? Like, Turlough had 9 stories. Okay, he has 9 stories. And for me, Chameleon is a better character. Chameleon's a much more interesting character than Turlough, who had 6 episodes across 2 stories. And plus, Turlough can't play the lute.
Okay, but one that we agreed on was his second worst being Warriors.
Well, actually, I have to give my thing about why I think Planet of Fire is his
Oh,
third.
sorry.
Yeah, his third.
Apologies.
So, lore dump, interesting backstory. Cool. He's still a huge asshole in that story. He leaves the Doctor to die because, for whatever reason, and as I said, Perry has the balls to go in and try and rescue the Doctor. Turlough doesn't. Also, Turlough also fucking puts all the blame on Chameleon. Chameleon, who is, for all we know, being like attacked, or there's some serious threat to him that could cause ramifications for the Doctor and the TARDIS. Oh, fuck it, no, it's a ship from my home planet. I'm going to try and gut the console, and I'm going to blame it all on Chameleon. And also then there's the reluctantly saving Perry from drowning side of things. And just across the whole story, as I said, nothing felt earned for him. So, but I think the most egregious thing is like that after all this time, after everything the man has done for you, you still fucking leave him to die at the drop of a hat.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. But yes, we can absolutely agree on Warriors.
Yeah, it's like my thing with Warriors is Turlough is okay. He does pick up a weapon at one point, and he does join the fray. I would like to point out that this story is called Warriors of the Deep. They are like there's an airlock, for fuck's sake. They're under the water. So there is a certain amount of self-preservation involved in protecting the fucking ship, or whatever the fuck it is. But it's a story where there was great, again, I think there was great potential for his character. It's slightly ahead in the future, so technology wise it's a bit more level pegging for him compared to Tegan. He also is not of Earth, so he doesn't have the history that the Doctor has with the Silurians and the Sea Devils. So he could have been an interesting intermediary where he's not of Earth. But unlike the Doctor, he has no history with these people whatsoever. He has no obligation to fucking any of them. And there was a great potential there. But mainly, it's because your man fell in a pool of water. And Turner just went, no, fuck him, he's dead. You know, and like he's regularly just saying like, oh no, fuck it, I'm not getting involved, I'm not doing it. He has that small bit where he wants to defend Tegan, that's really about it. Like, it's just like, dude, what the fuck? What the fuck?
You actually said something that just kind of fucking triggered something in my head about Warriors of Deep, and you know how he's not of that time and he can offer a different perspective. Do you remember the episode of Next Generation, The Neutral Zone? The one where they find the three guys in cryogenic stasis?
Yes.
And your man comes up to the bridge when Picard is talking to the Romulans, and he goes like, they're bluffing, they don't know anything either. It's like, just like that. I think like something like that was just what came into my head there when he was speaking. Like going, that would have been fucking cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or just like have him be fucking ballsy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. There's also like the potential, again, maybe it would have been, you know, they gave us the Doctor, but like, could Turlough have been the one to volunteer himself to man the computer? Do you know? Again, he's very intelligent. He's not human. You know, very much a sort of an Adric type situation or whatever. Could he have done that? Maybe. Maybe not. But yeah. He's just there. He's just there. And when you compare him to Tegan in that story, who also doesn't have a whole lot to do,
no,
but who wants to do, is the difference. You're just like, dude, you're poor showing, dude. Poor showing.
Yeah.
How about you? Any other thoughts on it?
No, again, it's just one of those things of where like he has no problem leaving the Doctor to his fate, and he only seems to have like. The more I thought of it, I thought the whole thing of saving Tegan, I was like, it's not an attraction thing or anything like that. It's basically she might have some way of handling the TARDIS because she's been around longer. She's essentially an insurance policy for utilizing the TARDIS. That's all. And like, doing a lore dump for a character later on down the line in this era, I think is a very dicey thing to do because, see, unlike nowadays, it's the showrunner that creates the character rather than like it is the showrunner that would create the character, or at least they would have some insight into the creation of the character. Whereas, I think for this era, like it's mainly the writer that creates the character, and then the showrunner decides whether or not they actually want to keep going with them or anything like that. No, that could be a very mistaken belief, but here it's like there's like, okay, we'll introduce this new character, and then someone goes, oh, but we can add this to them, and we can add that to them, and we can add that to them. It's like, but this should have been like at least seeded the whole way through. And Turlough's history as like a junior lieutenant within a rebel faction should have probably come up a lot more in this particular story.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. Yeah. I agree with you. And then for my worst, I had Terminus. And again, you gave your reasons as to why you weren't including any of the Black Guardian stories in there. But for me, the reason I had Terminus there is because for me, it's Turlough at his most fucking frustrating to watch. Like, the most frustrating to watch. Because for almost the entire story, he's just skulking around on the ship. He's not actually doing anything. He doesn't progress plot. He doesn't progress, his own internal conflict doesn't progress any further. Do you know what I mean? There's not like any sort of grand revelation or anything like that. And it's at this point that you're like, they actually don't know how to write it. They actually don't know how to write it. They don't know what to do with it. So he just spends an age skulking around on his own, crawling through ducts. And I'm like, you have this fantastic story going on around you. And this guy is just there. Do you know, like, and even like him wandering off and like his interactions with Tegan were fucking horrendous and everything. And it's like, dude, like, what were the writers trying to do with you? And I get that it's it's Nissa's departure story. But that doesn't mean that Turlough, again, we have future humans, we have advanced technology. Turlough has a functioning brain, we believe. Again, there's been a great opportunity for him, or maybe it's an opportunity for him to sort of say, like, you know, go down the dark side of it. You know, maybe he tries to, you know, arrange it so the Doctor gets infected with whatever these people have. He's not killing him, but he'll die anyway. So I'll get the Black Guardian off his back. Like, there's ways that you could have made that story interesting, and instead he's just running around being like, I want to get back in the TARDIS, I want to get back in the TARDIS, I want to get back in the TARDIS. I'm like, dude, is it like a weird like baby blanket for you? Like, what is the obsession?
Give me my blue blanket.
It's like this weird return to the spatial womb that he's like obsessed with. Do you know? It's like it's so bizarre. But I understand why you didn't have those in there because it's hard to tell how much of that was Turlough.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I personally, I think the majority of that, given what we saw later on, the majority of that was Turlough being Turlough.
Isn't the TARDIS like that state of grace where the Black Guardian can't get into it?
Yeah, but there was something weird where like the door disappeared and they couldn't actually get back in.
Yeah, because like somehow it meshed into the space station, I think, or something.
Yeah. But then you had yours then.
Yes, I had the Awakening, which is significant for me because it was the one that I gave a 0 to. First, I would say first and hopefully last. I don't like giving zeros, but Turlough in it, he really serves no purpose. It's a two-parter, but he serves no purpose in it really, other than being like a plot device to reconnect Tegan's grandfather to the group. But even that, it's like a case of, okay, we're in this strange village and we're being hunted by people. Let's split up. You ran through the hedges and you left Tegan to run on the main road while being chased by guys on horseback. The strategy comes into play, so there we go. It's like fucking uses his military. They can't follow me through the hedges. And then when he ends up being thrown into the fucking shed with Tegan's grandfather, he only brings him along because otherwise he feels like I'm convinced he only brings him along because of the fact that one, he needs someone else to help bust him out, and he also can't take the risk of your man ruining any escape attempt that he has. And then he tries to kill a guy as well, which, look, we've talked before about violence within Doctor Who, and we've talked about how Ian would get into physical contest, like Ixta is a great version of that, and that wonderful, that amazing fight to the death in the Aztec Temple. I miss you, John Lucarati. And then, like, we had the one that we always called out was Ben killing the Cyberman, because he had no choice. Jamie was different because Jamie was designed to be that way, but Jamie never did anything in cold blood. Whereas Turlough here, that's the thing, is very few of the combative companions have done anything in cold blood. Like, Leela always, like, I think maybe the only thing that she ever did in cold blood was a Janus Thorn, but that was, it was like trying to save someone. So I wouldn't really have classified that as cold blood. Turlough just did it because the guy was in the way of getting into the TARDIS. So I think it brings out the worst in Turlough because even when he has a chance to do something right by saving Tegan's grandfather, he does it purely for selfish reasons. And I'm confident that he would have fucking cut him loose, because Turlough is the type of guy that will absolutely cut the cord if there's even like a 1% chance that person that's with him could bring him down.
Yeah. I'll be honest, I sort of agonized between The Awakening and The King's Demons in my number 3 spot. I was back and forth between the two of them. I ultimately went to King's Demons because of the lost potential of it being the story after Enlightenment, where he could have done whatever. But now that you think, I think Awakening probably is worse. At least you can laugh at him in The King's Demons.
Yeah, no, it is. And like, this is one of those things of where you've come at it with a very interesting perspective, which is like the missing potential of a character, and therefore it's a bad showing. And then whereas I kind of focus more on the actions taken by him within that story that outlines why I think he's a bad character. And yeah, no, like, it's, I think we've talked before about really bad missteps for characters in any given opportunity with a story, but it's like Turlough is just such, like, for me, and also I would say for you as well, and we're not saying that it's gospel, but for us, Turlough is just a bad character.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept. Very interesting concept. Shocking execution.
Yeah,
and I don't blame Mark Strickson for that.
No, absolutely not. No, absolutely not.
I think at the end of the day, when you consider that that was present in pretty much every episode, and we still have to talk a little bit about Frontiers in a second, but we consider that that pattern of behavior was present in pretty much every episode. That goes back to Eric Soward, who was our script editor at the time, and it goes back to John Nathan Turner and what he found acceptable for the show, which in our opinion, wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
But we do have somewhat of a silver lining around the character of Turlough.
We do.
Because Frontios is a very interesting episode for Turlough.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually just realised that the 3 episodes I picked were basically his character arc, but just not in the right order. So Turlough in Frontios is so compelling because up until now, he's been a coward in kind of a cowardly lion kind of sense of the word, in a sort of selfish self-preservation sense of the word, of not wanting to put himself in danger for the betterment of anybody else. In Frontiers, though, it is pure terror.
Mm-hmm.
To the point where his mind fucking disassociates for a while. He becomes like a fucking walking zombie, for lack of a better word. And it adds tension to the story, which he has yet to effectively do up until that point.
Mm-hmm.
And he also has knowledge that helps the plot. I think it's the only story, maybe Planet of Fire. Okay, Mordrin, he is part of. He is the plot. Planet of Fire, he does help the plot progress, not in the way that you would have liked it, but he helps the plot progress. Mm-hmm. But Frontiers is probably the sort of best example of that. He gets some focus. His alien background, the fear of the Tractators, again, very compelling, very interesting. I think it's the one story where they actually kind of fucking stick the landing. And also, him going around pretending that the hat stand is magic.
Yeah. Back off.
It was quite funny.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's why, like, I think, you know, in terms of best stories for me, I'm like, there really was no question. It literally couldn't be anything else.
Mm-hmm.
How about you?
So first of all, I have to take a look at something. Was Frontios written by Christopher Bidmead?
Oh,
I believe it was. It was.
Of course it was.
Yeah. So I was like, I would have been very curious. I would have been very interesting to see Turlough's farewell, like his entire arc handled by Christopher Bidmead. Because as I said on the Frontios episode, Christopher Bidmead got it. He understood what it was meant to be. And it's a shame that was his last story. But Frontios, and I was kind of taking a look back at stuff. It's the last story, I believe, and it was the first story since Terminus, I think, that I rated 4 and above. No, in the grand scheme of things, it was only 6 stories, not a whole lot. But given the high rankings I used to give on a more frequent basis in earlier hours, quite significant. But at the time, as I said, Turlough played a large portion of that because I quite liked Turlough in that story. I thought his interactions with Norna were actually quite good. The character was fleshed out a lot more, and we got to see his capabilities. Like, yes, waving the hat stand around was hilarious. That was really, really funny. But the two things that really stuck out to me were the intrigue of the character with the race memory of the Tryons, which never came up in the fucking story about Tryon. But also it's not even his science mind, it's his analytical deductive mind. When he's the one that figures out what's going on in the research center, he's the one that finds the secret entrance based on, like, just looking around and going, why the fuck is there a hoist pulley in the roof of this room? Like, that type of stuff. And I'm like, I miss that for companions. I really do. And we've had so much of it as of late being like they're damsels in distress or dumbasses in distress, or not being utilized to their full potential. And I know, again, as I said, it's only been, so I say, 6 stories since Terminus when we had Nyssa driving things. But go back to earlier eras where this was happening on a consistent basis, where companions were doing this shit. So I'm glad that we got at least one story with Turlough, and I'm glad that it was an overly strong story written by a very strong writer.
Yeah.
And I know
agreed, but that brings...
I know I spoke more. I know I spoke more about Frontios though than Turlough, but as I said, to the points that you were raising there, I completely agree with you.
Yeah, I think like when you have an episode that's good for a character, you can discuss both.
Yes,
together.
Absolutely.
You know, it doesn't really matter if you're discussing the story or the character. If it's a really good character story, then it's generally a really good story in general. But those were our thoughts.
Yes.
As always, if you agree, if you disagree, we would love to hear your thoughts on Turlough. Again, I haven't done any research outside of our own conversations and a couple of comments that we've gotten to know what the general fan reaction is to Turlough. I will say he randomly comes up a lot in fanfiction. As one of the sort of stray children that Sarah Jane would adopt in fanfiction.
Because I remember I got into a conversation with someone ages ago that liked Stephen as a really good companion, rated him higher than some of the ones that we would rate higher, which is funny because if you think about Stephen's, people forgot that Peter Purvis was on Doctor Who because a lot of his episodes were missing. It was that whole Blue Peter episode where he was like, yes, I was on Doctor Who. And I remember just thinking at the time, going, what are you seeing that I'm not? And I actually had a really good discussion with that person. So, again, I'd like to see something very similar for Turlough. Yeah.
And again, Mark, if you do ever listen to this, I doubt you will, but if you do, it's not you, Beb. Yeah. It's not you. We'd love to meet you. We'd love to talk. Actually, I would love to talk to you and actually find out, in retrospect, what do you think of the character?
Yeah.
On an unofficial, not not being directed and archived by the BBC sort of documentary conversation. What did you actually think?
Absolutely.
And I will say, one other thing where Planet of Fire gets a small little nod from me is he finally changed his fucking clothes.
Yeah, that was the strength.
Anyway, like we said, next episode, which we're going to record in the next 2 minutes, but you have to wait a little while to hear it, is going to be our end of year rambling Q&A, how we doing, check-in, and then in the new year we will be back with Caves of Androzani.
Yeah.
And then the week after that will be another rambling.
Yes. It'll actually, in the new year, we'll have the end of one era and the start of a new.
Yeah. Yeah. Until then, though.
Bye.
Bye.